Video, we will be taking a look at my updated 2024 presidential election prediction between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, the 45th and 46th president of the United States respectively. Joe Biden, the incumbent president of the United States, though expected to face several challengers in the Democratic primary, such as RFK Jr., is expected to easily cruise to victory in the Democratic primary. If elected, Biden would be 82 years old on Inauguration Day in 2025, by far the oldest president to ever be re-elected. Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, is also expected to easily dominate in the Republican primary. As you can see, he holds around 50% of the total support against Ron DeSantis' just 21% of the support. And again, he is expected to win the GOP nomination. Without further ado, let's get right into today's video. Now, as you can see on screen right now are the safe and some of the likely states on both sides. Joe Biden had 209 electoral votes, that's basically the Democratic floor, and Republicans at 148, that's the Republican floor. Now, the first two likely states I would like to explain is the states of Iowa and Ohio. Both of these states are considered in the likely Republican column, as they both went to Trump by 8.2 points in the state of Iowa and 8.1 points in the state of Ohio. Now, these two states typically were bellwether states just a couple of decades ago. Obama won both of these states in both 2008 and 2012, but in 2016, something changed. Donald Trump was able to do very well in the working class suburban, exurban areas around Cleveland in the state of Ohio, and just did very well in the Iowa rural areas, unlike any Republican previously, and he won the states by surprisingly large margins in 2020 as well, leading me to believe that Donald Trump will most certainly win both of these states comfortably in 2024 if he wins the Republican nomination. I also believe that in the state of Texas, I do believe that Donald Trump should be able to win the state by a likely margin by around 7 to 8 percentage points. Again, I don't think that's a surprising prediction. Biden lost the state to Trump by 5.6 points. Now, that was better than any Democratic performance in decades. Nonetheless, Biden actually funneled a lot of money and time into the state of Texas, hoping that he could make the state at least pretty competitive. Now, it was a lot more competitive than it was previously, because areas like Fort Worth and Dallas shifted Democrat by huge margins, as well as some of the Houston and Austin suburbs. Nonetheless, Democrats still underperformed their expectations, and Joe Biden will most certainly not funnel money into the state in 2024, therefore the margin will probably be a little bit wider. Another state that Republicans are going to win by a larger margin is the state of Florida. Now, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, won re-election in 2022 by a surprisingly large 17 percentage point margin. That's a very large margin for any Republican in such a competitive state, leading me and pretty much all political pundits to believe that Florida is no longer considered a toss-up state and now considered a lean Republican state. Trump was also able to narrow down the county of Miami-Dade to just a 7-point win for Joe Biden, while in 2016, Hillary Clinton won the county by nearly 30 points. So Republicans have been doing a lot better in the state of Florida, and now Republicans are pretty much guaranteed to win the state. It's only a question of margin, and I do believe that Donald Trump will be able to win the state by around 7 to 8 points against Joe Biden. Now, those are all the likely states for Donald Trump. He's now sitting at 218, with Maine 2nd District as well, if you consider that a state. It's one electoral vote, but it's also a crucial electoral vote, as every electoral vote matters in the Electoral College. Now, going to the states that Joe Biden are going to win by a likely margin. Now, I do believe that there is one more state that Democrats are going to win by a likely margin, and that will be the state of Minnesota. In 2020, Democrats won the state of Minnesota by 7 percentage points. Now, Minnesota was expected to go for Democrats by similar margins compared to states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, but this state went to Democrats by 7, as opposed to less than 3% in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Democrats were able to do very well in the Minneapolis suburbs. If you look at some of the trends, these are the areas that trended Democrat the most heavily, and these are pretty much the population centers of the state. These areas are only going to trend more Democratic in the future. Potentially speaking, although Republican areas in the rural areas are going to trend towards the Republican Party. Generally speaking, because of how largely and densely populated some of these suburbs are around Minneapolis, I do believe Democrats will win by a likely margin in 2024. Now we're going to just go state by state, starting with Nevada, Arizona, and moving our way to the Rust Belt. First off, in the state of Nevada, this is a very interesting one. Biden won the state by 2.4%. However, he notably did not overperform Hillary Clinton's 2.4% victory in the state in 2016. In fact, Catherine Cortez Masto in 2018 also won the state by 2.4%. So it's very interesting. So really, do I believe Democrats are going to win the state? Well, this is very, very difficult. Democrats have been losing support in Las Vegas over the last couple of decades. Because while this county is trending Republican a little bit, Democrats are countering that with gains in Washoe, but it's not nearly as populated as the area of Clark. Further, Republicans are going to gain in some of the rural areas, so Democrats are also countering that by gaining in some of the California border counties. But overall speaking, Republicans are still having the state trend to them a bit by bit. Now, will I believe that Republicans will actually flip the state in 2024? I believe so. I believe Democratic turnout will be low, and also Democrats only won the state by around 34,000 votes in the last election, in 2020 that is. So I do believe that Democrats will end up losing the state of Nevada by a tilt margin. I'm talking about less than 0.5% in the state, but nonetheless, it will be a loss for the Democratic Party. Now to the state of Arizona. This is very interesting. In the state of Arizona, Joe Biden won the state by just 0.3%. That's a very, very close margin. However speaking, the state has been trending Democrat for a significant period of time now. Maricopa County, 5 points more Democratic. Pima County, 5.1 points more Democratic. When we look at the state of Arizona, Democrats have been doing a lot better in past decades. And Phoenix and Pima County, these are the two counties that carry about 70%, if not more, of the state's population. And when these counties shift 5 points to the Democratic Party pretty much every election, it just seems very good for the Democratic Party, though I do believe Democrats will actually lose some voters in some of the rural areas, even some of the rural Democratic areas. Now, we did see that Democrats did do better than in 2020. I don't think that's going to happen in 2024. Even then speaking, I do believe Democrats will win the state by just around 1 percentage point, ultimately a tilt margin for Joe Biden. Now going to the state of Georgia. Georgia is very interesting too. This is a state that voted for Democrats by just 0.23%, a very, very close margin, less than 1/4 of a percentage point. Democrats won the state by 12,000 votes thanks to a very high turnout in the Atlanta area, and you can see massive turnout shifts and massive favorable shifts to the Democratic Party. Now, do I believe those shifts will continue in the next decades? Yes. But do I believe Democrats have the year in 2024 to actually win? No. I don't believe that Biden's the most inspiring Democratic candidate to be able to turn out black voters to vote for Democrats. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe that around 85 to 90% of the black vote will still go to the Democratic Party and to Joe Biden on the presidential election result. However, I believe that black turnout will be down to the point that Democrats are not energized enough, and given how close the state is in recent elections, it's really either party's game. Having around 20,000 less voters in the Atlanta area could be the make or break factor for Democrats to ultimately lose the state by just a couple of thousand votes. In the state of Georgia, I do believe that Donald Trump is slightly favored. Now, Democrats and Republicans are very close on the electoral count total, but Donald Trump does have a narrow lead. Now let's go to the state of North Carolina. North Carolina in 2016 compared to 2020, Democrats did better in 2020 thanks to shifts in the Charlotte area and the Raleigh area. However, Republicans also did better in some of the rural areas of the state and some of the rural black areas. Generally speaking, I do believe that Democrats will have minor gains over the next couple of decades in terms of the overall trend. But in 2024, I don't believe Democrats will win the state of North Carolina. Again, Joe Biden's not the most inspiring candidate. He has a net disapproval rating of +12. He's just not in the best shape for him to win the state of North Carolina. Again, I do think it's possible, but I don't think it's that probable. So I'm going to give the Republicans the state by around a 3 to 4% margin, which means a lean margin. Now to Rust Belt. These are the most interesting states of the 2024 presidential election prediction, as these states would ultimately decide the fate of these two candidates. But before that, I'm going to give Maine's at-large vote to the Democrats by a likely margin. Again, it really depends on turnout. If the Maine 2nd District has turnout as high as Maine's 1st District, the state could actually get competitive. But because Maine's 2nd District turnout is so low, Democrats are most certainly going to win the state of Maine. Now going to the state of New Hampshire. Now, I do believe that Joe Biden is probably going to win the state of New Hampshire. He won the state against Trump by 7 points, and Trump only managed to win 2 of the small counties in the state as a whole. Democrats did very, very well in the suburban areas such as Manchester, Concord, and Dover. Overall speaking, I do believe Democrats will ultimately gain in the state in the next couple of decades. But in 2024 specifically, I think the state will turn Republican slightly, though not by a huge margin. Now going to Nebraska's 2nd district, the district has been drawn to be around 2 points more Republican, so I do believe that Democrats will end up losing this district in terms of how much votes they actually win by, but they're still definitely going to win the district as a whole by around 4 to 5 percentage points. Now going to the Rust Belt, these 3 states will ultimately decide again who wins the 2024 presidential election. Let's start with Michigan. I think this is the most obvious one. Democrats won the state by nearly 3 percentage points, 2.8 percentage points, or around 155,000 votes. Now in the state of Michigan, Democrats had the largest gain in the 3 Rust Belt states in 2020. Democrats did very well in Kent County, trended the county by around 10 points in favor of the Democrats. Won Oakland County 6 points more than they did in 2016. Overall, Democrats had very monumental gains in some of these suburban/exurban counties. Democrats also ran up the turnout. And overall, the state, really not a substantial region, actually shifted towards the Republican Party. We see a couple of rural counties shift to the Republican Party, but really speaking, these counties don't have many voters in them. So overall, I do believe that Democrats will win the state of Michigan by a lean margin. I don't think that's too surprising. They were able to do pretty well there in 2020, obviously not as well as the polls or many pundits predicted, but still they were able to flip the state by nearly 3 percentage points. Now let's go to the state of Pennsylvania. This will decide who wins the presidential election. Now for the state of Pennsylvania, this is very, very close. For one, Democrats, I think they'll be able to do very well in the suburban areas compared to previous Democrats a couple of decades ago, such as Al Gore or John Kerry. But on the other side, Republicans are going to be able to turn out many rural voters like they did in 2020 and be able to counter the Democratic gains in some of the suburban areas. Now, if you look at the shift from 2016, you can see some of the rural areas actually shifted to the Republican Party. But where Democrats actually made gains are around the Delaware, Chester County region, but Philadelphia actually shifted 3.5 points more Republican. Overall, this state is very close, and Biden will not be able to benefit from this Scranton Joe type of label, and the state is trending towards the Republican Party. But when all factors are considered in, I do believe Democrats are narrowly favored. I don't believe Trump is that electable of a candidate. Although he has been able to moderate himself on some of the issues, I just don't think he's actually able to win the state of Pennsylvania. Thus, Joe Biden will win the presidential election. Finally, in the state of Wisconsin, this is also a very, very close state. On one side, Democrats were able to win the state, but it was by less than 1 percentage point, and the state has been trending towards the Republican Party for quite a while now. If you look at the shift from 2016, though Democrats did overperform in the Wow counties and the Milwaukee-Madison region, Republicans also were able to do very, very well in some of the working class areas, actually gain in some of them by upwards of 5 percentage points. Nonetheless, I do believe Democrats are slightly favored, and here's why. Democrats only won the state by just over 20,000 votes, but I think that Republican turnout in the rural areas, though they will be pretty high, and they will vote for the Republicans by a pretty large margin, I think Democrats have enough voters that they could turn out in Dane County and Milwaukee County to be able to win the state. I also believe that the working class voters are going to vote for Donald Trump. The 2024 election turnout will be lower than 2020, and that will ultimately help Democrats in some of the working class areas. I believe turnout will be overall lower, but many voters that are very energized by Donald Trump may not actually turn out in 2024 at the rate they turned out in 2020 in the rural areas. And ultimately speaking, I do believe that Biden will win the state by just around 0.1 or 0.2%. This is really a toss-up in the state of Wisconsin, but I do believe Joe Biden is favored. So thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.